Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us, whether you're joining us in live right now or you're listening to this as a recording. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this webinar. Before we get started, I just want to outline that there will be a questions and answers session at the end of the webinar today. If anyone has any questions as we go through the slides, please go down to the chat box and you can message me directly and we'll go through as many of those questions as possible at the end. Or if you like, you can of course email me directly and I'll get back to you. So just to make a quick introduction, my name is Devine. I'm the International Business Development Manager with Edmentum. I've been working in the education industry and with international schools in one capacity or another for over 10 years now. And I think it's safe to say that in all that time in the education sector, we've never experienced anything like what we're going through right now with the volume of schools that are closing on a daily basis. Just on the news last night in the UK, the Prime Minister announced that schools across the UK will be closing from this Friday. I know in places like the UAE, they've been preparing for online learning that will be coming up this Sunday. Schools in Asia have been closed in some cases for over a month. And there's developments in this situation every day. But just because our schools are closing or being forced to close, that doesn't necessarily mean that learning stops. And it's really been amazing to follow the journey of various schools, associations, teachers right across the globe who are transitioning from a brick and mortar environment to now moving across to delivering lessons online. There's been so much enthusiasm from teachers, senior leaders, administrators, ed tech companies coming together to partner with schools. It's really been reassuring across the industry to say that, you know, we have the capabilities to come together and make sure that students have access to learning no matter what the circumstances. In fact, in my own environment here, in the room next door to me right now, I have my wife, who is a secondary or high school maths teacher. She's delivering an online lesson right now. Downstairs, we have my sister-in-law who's babysitting our 1-year-old. So forgive me if you do hear either a baby crying or kids enthusiastically screaming from the room next door, or maybe our dog downstairs barking as well. It's a new environment that we're living in. We're all kind of trying to adapt to the situation that we're in. But like I said, it's really invigorating, exciting to see how the education industry is coming together to make sure that every student has access to learning through these difficult times. The reason for this webinar is really to look at, well, how can we support students during school closures? What do we need to do in order to ensure that students get access to the curriculum that they need, the learning tools that they need in order to be successful over the coming weeks and months? And also what I want to do is talk a little bit about how Edmentum is here to support you during this time. Edmentum have really been the pioneering in terms of online education for over 50 years at this stage. We work with schools and partner with schools in over 80 countries around the world. We have over 1,000 employees, most of which have worked in the education industry at some time or another. We have ex-principals, administrators. We have full-time teachers, over 100 full-time teachers on staff. We have over 400 contract teachers that work with us, guidance counselors, mentors. We really come with the approach of building a school around each individual student. And we want to make sure that you're aware that we are here to support you no matter what you need. So whether it's access to free digital curriculum, printable materials that you can use, whether you need to work with us to get access to content, but you need the teacher behind that to support you, we will be here to help you. So really want to get that message across. But the first thing we need to look at is, you know, the two different scenarios that we're currently faced with. So firstly, planning for the situation that we're in right now. So whether your school is coming very close to closing or has just closed, what do we need to do to support our teachers? How do we keep engaged with our students to help their learning to move forward in the short term? But also looking at that long-term challenge. How are we going to engage and support our teachers if this turns in from to a 3 to 4 week closure like it is right now, to maybe something a little bit more long-term, so as it moves maybe to an 8 or 9 week closure or longer. There's two different scenarios that we have to plan with. Supporting our teachers right now, but also looking to the future and seeing how we're going to support our teachers and our students from a long-term perspective also. So there's a couple of considerations we need to look at when we are planning for either short-term or long-term closures. And really that falls into a number of different key areas. Firstly, we need to think about it from an operational setup perspective. So how are we set up operationally to support the shutdown of our school for an unknown amount of time? As we know, it could be anything from 2-3 weeks to 8-9 weeks. We're just unsure at the moment. Things are changing on a daily basis. So we need to think and evaluate what our operational setup looks like right now. How do I prepare my team for success in a virtual setting? So how do we prepare our teachers who are maybe used to delivering content or working with students within a normal bricks and mortar environment to moving to a fully virtual environment? But also we need to look at how we prepare the different grade levels of students for success. I know from my experience working with students and the experience of across Edmentum through our online school of working with students, that maybe the high school students or middle school students with a small bit of social support from teachers are actually very good at independent learning, and they can really thrive in a virtual learning environment. A lot of high school students are already taking online courses. So in some ways they're prepared to moving everything online because they have that experience behind them. But as we look at maybe some of the younger years and thinking about how we're going to support students in grade 1, grade 2, or year 1, year 2, that looks very different. Not only does your teacher have to support the students, but we also have to support parents as well. Teachers are going to be a great resource for parents in supporting younger students in terms of how they get access to the learning. Particularly if we're looking at maybe a long-term, if we're looking at long-term scope and sequence, if we're trying to make sure that students are getting access to a greater volume of curriculum content over a longer period of time. There's a lot of things we need to put in place for that. And parents not only need to be able to support their child at home, but they will need the support from our teachers to be able to facilitate that. So we're also looking at, for younger students, we don't just want to move them completely into online. From a younger student, some online access is good and can help them to thrive, but also they'll need access to printable materials as well. So it's thinking about that setup for the different types of students that we're going to be working with, and helping to meet the needs not only of our teachers, but parents as well. The timing aspect, I've talked a little bit already. We need to think about how long this is going to last for. In many ways, things are up in the air, but we need to start being prepared for short-term access to whether it's online material, printable materials, or whether we're looking at something a little bit more long-term, and the different approaches that we'll have to put in place if it turns into a much more long-term. We need to look at the kind of different instructional requirements for that. So what type of materials are going to be needed? What kind of tools do we need access to? How are we going to communicate and support our students today, tomorrow, and for the weeks to come? The time of year is also something really to take into consideration. We're at mid-year now. We need to ensure that students are able to keep progressing forward. How are we going to facilitate that? What needs to be achieved between now and the end of the academic year, potentially? We also need to look at how are we going to individualize instruction for our students. There's been a huge emphasis over the last number of years on personalizing learning, individualizing learning for each student depending on their needs. How does that work in a fully virtual environment. It can make it very difficult in some cases. If you're teaching online to, maybe you're running a class for 20, 30 different students, how are you going to individualize learning in that element? So there's lots of things to think about from that perspective. Also, you need to start thinking about the expectations of teachers. So what kind of expectations are you setting out for your teachers? What do they need to achieve within the day? What does their timetable look like? How many students are they expected to engage with? Parents as well, how are they going to engage with parents? How is that going to be fed back to the school? How do we keep our teachers engaged during a shutdown? I know in some cases that won't be a problem. I've seen just from following things on social media and Twitter, teachers are really engaged and really open, embracing the challenge of moving towards virtual learning. But we need to make sure that that's the case for every teacher. And it's helping teachers who may be unsure of how they're going to run things online. What kind of support elements do they need to put in place? Some teachers will move towards it very easily, but for other teachers, it will be much more of a challenge. So it's understanding the needs of each individual teacher and making sure that they have a support network in place. Also, for students, what is the expectation level for our students? So again, what kind of timetable are they running from? How are they going to be engaged? Are they expected to dial in and work with different classes throughout the day? Are they expected to have some independent learning? How is that going to work from a student's perspective? And then what communication needs to be put in place? If we think about the lines of communication that need to run across all stakeholders, from senior leaders to administrators, teachers, parents, students themselves, there's a whole world of different communication aspects we have to think about how that is going to be run. As we look to putting contingency planning in place, there's just a quick checklist that I want to go through, and this is from experience of working with schools, from hearing from different schools. I'm lucky enough to be included in a communication between a group of schools around Africa who are currently going through contingency planning, and in some cases have a great experience of having to do this before, whether that's through political unrest or maybe extreme weather conditions where they've needed to close the school down. And this is a quick checklist that we've talked through and put in place around that. Number one, it's thinking about connectivity. Do the parents and students have access to internet outside of the school? Do they have internet capabilities? Or are they able to print off materials? We need to think about this before we start to put plans in place in terms of how students are going to engage. How are parents, students, and teachers going to connect? Communication frequency. How often are we expecting our teachers to communicate with the students? In most cases, it will be on a daily basis. But how often are they going to be communicating back to our senior leadership team? How often are they going to communicate through to parents? All this needs to be clearly outlined. Also, the various communication channels. What are we going to use? For example, are we going to do live lessons on a platform like Zoom, like we're using right now, Skype? Are we going to start using elements like Google Classroom, emails, text messages, phone calls? Do we have all that information in place to help open up those communication channels? We've talked about planning, thinking about whether this was going to be a short-term plan or looking at extending planning out. So if this turns from 2 or 3 weeks to 9, 10, 12 weeks, what is the plan that we have in place? The various grade level access and support, ensuring that students across each individual grade have the access to the appropriate curriculum for them, and that they have the support network in place to be able to allow them to access that content. And then there's the training requirements as well. Are staff fully trained on some of the tools that we're introducing? As I said at the beginning, it's great to see that so many EdTech companies are coming together and partnering with school and opening up access to hundreds of different materials. We need to make sure that no matter what solution we're introducing, that the staff are fully trained on how to use it, they understand it, and also the students and what expectations are put in place around when that training is going to take place. We also need to look at things like accommodation support. So where are the students going to be accessing this material? thinking about the different community partners that we have in the small towns and villages and cities around us, like local libraries, businesses. How are they going to help within this process? What family resources are in place? Do we have appropriate Wi-Fi networks, device access points, cloud-based resources? How are we going to look at things like attendance tracking? How are we going to ensure that no student is left behind, that every student is accounted for and feel like they are being included just because they are now outside the bricks and mortar environment? We want to make sure that every student still feels like they're part of the school network and they are being communicated with every day, and we're able to keep track of students so no one is left behind, no one is falling through the cracks. It's really important to think about what type of solutions we're going to put in place to ensure that happens. From the different experiences that we've had working with schools, and also from information that has been fed back from schools that we're currently working with right now, there's a couple of different things that we need to point out in terms of tips for best practice. If we look at what's happening in Dubai right now, for example, their schools are moving towards fully online from this Sunday. And what's happening is people like within the KHDA or ministries are now starting to reach out to families and running surveys to get an understanding of which families have connectivity right now that they are able to adapt and actually work in an online environment, and which families are struggling or may have issues. Do they firstly have internet access at home? And if not, or if they do they actually have devices that can be used? So it's really important that we get the data together to help us to understand how parents and students are set up as we move towards an online learning environment. And a survey is a great way to help us to understand the opportunities and potential challenges that may come from moving into that environment, making sure that families are fully prepared and comfortable with the logistics of moving towards an online environment. They may have the capability through internet, they may have the devices in place, but do they have a setting in place within the home environment to support students working from home? Is there a particular area within the household where students can gain access and feel comfortable and safe working in an online environment? Also, it's looking at empowering teachers, focusing on the logistics with teachers, making sure that teachers have the tools they need in order to be successful in an online environment. Do they have access to the solutions, the tools that allow them to teach online? How are they going to engage with students? What solutions are going to be used to run an online classroom? How are they going to feed back on instruction, provide guidance, provide lesson plans? How is all that going to be outlined? We may have a plan in place, but we need to think about the tools behind that and how it's going to be delivered. So making sure teachers feel empowered to be able to run a classroom as they would normally. Prioritizing teacher-student engagement is really important. Ensuring that students and teachers are able to interact with each other through multiple channels. In some cases, it could be a live lesson that's taking place, like my wife's lesson next door on Zoom, or it could be conversations that are simply happening on the phone call, an email through with encouragement and additional lesson plans, access to different websites, to class pages. So it's really ensuring that there are multiple channels open for students and teachers to engage with each other. And then most important of all, making sure that communication is happening well and often. So clearly communicating your plans to students, parents, and teachers. Parents are going to have a lot of questions at this time, questions that they may not have thought of until this point, until the actual online learning starts. And that's when all the questions will start flowing through. So it's making sure that we've got great open communication channels to help parents to get in touch with our teachers, our senior leadership teams within the schools, but also for any students who are working through content, that if they're struggling at any time, that there's a channel that they can reach out and get in touch with someone who can support them. What I want to start talking about is how Edmentum can help with this international challenge. What can we do to support our partners, our schools who maybe have never heard of Edmentum before, have never used any of our solutions? How can we help to ensure that you're prepared to move online. And once you are online, how can we make sure that the students and teachers are successful in virtual learning? What we're doing is helping to get schools online and operational within 48 hours. So making sure that we support you with getting students and teachers added and enrolled into our programs as quickly as possible. So if that's a free solution that you're taking from us in the short term, or you're looking at what printable materials you need access to, we will work with you to make sure that both your students and teachers are added into the platform and enrolled and have the training that they need within a 48-hour time frame. We want to also make sure that teachers are getting access to quality virtual instruction. Instruction that is delivered by your teachers, but is aligned to your individual student needs. So we provide quality, internationally recognized, standards aligned digital curriculum, and we have been doing this, like I said, for over 50 years. We want to make sure that your teachers are getting access to the appropriate content for each individual student, and also making sure that they can track progress of students. So when they transition back to school, that you are able to easily get an understanding of what has been achieved or accomplished, or what progress has been made by each individual student. So you can start planning for the next academic year, or how they're going to move forward from now until the end of this academic year. But also making sure that your teachers are fully prepared to deliver virtual instruction. So if you are introducing a new solution, that we work with your teachers to make sure that they're confident in using that material and that they're able to fully engage with the individual students. There's a couple of different approaches that you need to start to look at. Firstly, if you're thinking about maybe short or medium-term closures, maybe it's working on standards mastery and practice in the short term. That may be something that facilitates particular learners within the classroom. So whether that is access to a tool that is just providing little snippets of content that allows students to work through, practice, and then master, that is aligned to their individual needs, or whether you're looking at something that is a bit more medium to long term. They need access to full courses that are standards aligned. They need access to a teacher behind that, an accredited teacher who will be able to support them. Whether it is something that is just going to be directly aligned for individual instruction, or whether it's something that needs to be outlined right across the school. Maybe there's a particular element that just needs to focus on gifted and talented students, students who are maybe feel like they're left behind, students who are behind on their grades. Building a resource that facilitates those individual learners, but then also looking at what will be required from a whole school perspective. There's really a number of different elements that we can take in and build into your plan depending on what your needs are. And often, and from the experience that we've had over the last couple of weeks, often it's a mix match of different things. In some cases, teachers are delivering classes at normal, but in an online environment. And to supplement that, they are introducing solutions to allow students to focus on mastery and practice. And in other elements, we've introduced full online courses, up to 4 to 5 courses a day that come with the course content, but also our teachers behind that to help to make sure that every student is getting the engagement and the content that they need in order to progress. We have a number of different solutions that have been used by schools over the last wide range of years, from Education City, that has been used by thousands of schools across the UK and internationally to support targeted instruction for primary schools, so from pre-K up to grade 6. It is a great resource that can be used as part of your homeschooling environment. Access to over 10,000 pieces of curriculum content that can be aligned to your individual student needs. We have a tool like ExactPath that is used from K through 12, which provides individualized learning paths for each student based around their needs. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. We also have tools like Study Island, which is used by thousands of schools all over the world to build individual assessments, to reinforce learning, for students to practice. There's tens of thousands of pieces of content built into Study Island that can be adapted and outlined for each individual student based around their needs, or whether you need access to full courses, so full online courses, and maybe you also need access to a teacher behind that. That can be done through our fully accredited online high school with our academy, where we provide not only the course, but the teacher as well. In terms of ExactPath, I talked about how it can be used to support individualized learning for your students across the school. We provide an adaptive diagnostic test that your student can sit down and run through. And based on the results of that test, we provide an individualized learning path of content to help that student no matter what grade level they're working at. So whether there are students who is maybe working at a higher grade level, we make sure that they're given challenging work based on their individual needs, or for students who may be struggling, we make sure that the content is adapted to where they are right now, and we build in an individual learning path to help make sure that that student progresses and grows. If you already have data in place within the school, and I'm sure the vast majority of schools already have that in place, maybe schools who have done Renaissance testing or MAP testing, you can upload that data into this platform, and based on the results of that data, we will build an individual learning plan for every student. So it means that a student can log in and they've got data and learning platforms and content based around math, reading, language arts, based around their individual needs. For teachers, and for administrators who want to be able to monitor how students are working through that content, everything is fully visualized and very easy to understand. So when as a teacher, administrator, or senior leader, you can log in and see exactly what content each student has been assigned and how they're working through that, if they're struggling on particular elements. And also what we can do off the back of this is also provide access to one of our teachers who will happily monitor this also, depending on the challenges that you're currently going through. But this tool is hugely effective, particularly in what's happening right now for schools and for teachers and students, to ensure they're getting access to the appropriate curriculum based around their individual needs. If anybody needs access, free access to this tool, please just reach out and let me know, and we will make sure to get your school and your students enrolled. We will make sure that they get the access that they need over the coming months in order to ensure that they are able to move forward academically and get the support that they need. So please reach out and let us know if you want more information on ExactPath, or you want to be able to see it for yourself or introduce it to your students. Please let us know and we'll be happy to get you set up with it. Our online virtual school, our fully accredited K-12 virtual school, is also available depending on what your needs are. So we partner with international schools all over the world to provide not only high quality curriculum content, but also the teachers behind that. So fully accredited, certified teachers who work one-on-one with students throughout the course. The program is fully flexible and adaptable, and the implementation is very quick. We provide everything that the student needs in order to complete a course. So not only the curriculum, but the teacher as well, who will work with that student through live lessons, emails, open communication. All of the content is fully accredited by Cognia, formerly Advanced Ed, and we provide full end-to-end educational services. So if once students have returned to school, we provide a report back to the school on how that student has performed. In normal circumstances, this is something that a school would sign up to over a full year. But under these circumstances, what we can do is break it down by month. So if you just need short-term access to a program like this, again, reach out, get in touch with us, and we'll put together a package that will help and support you. This is something that I wouldn't recommend to probably build in for every single student across the school, because the amount of time and effort that would be needed to put in a program like this in the short term. But what I would say is that if you have individual students who need access to content and need that support of a teacher on a one-on-one basis, then we will be able to set that up and run it for you. Again, we have over 300 courses available online within our virtual high school. So we will have a course that meets the needs of your individual students, and we will email out a full list of those courses to you. We also have Education City. Education City has been used by British and US curriculum schools world over for years. It is used by thousands of schools across the UK and hundreds of thousands of schools across the world. It supports differentiated learning, whole class instruction, perfect for blended learning, assessment and reporting, ensuring that students get access to the curriculum content that they need most appropriate to the grade level that they're currently in. We've introduced new tools to help ensure that teachers are able to track the success of students as they work through the various elements of content. So whether they're working through their English, maths, science content, and depending on the grade level that they're currently in, the teacher will be able to assign content to a student, and they will also be able to keep track of how that student is working through that content. So whether they're able to master it, whether they're having struggles, and they will be able to use this material as a way of engaging with students and making sure they're moving forward. And it's also very easy for parental engagement as well, for parents to get access to ensure that students or parents are happy that students are getting the access to content that they need, and that the student themselves and their child is actually up to date in terms of their education. So if anyone, again, needs free access to Education City for their students, please reach out to me directly, get in touch, or get in touch directly with Edmentum. We're happy to have that discussion with you to make sure that your school is set up with the access that they need, but also that your students have the access that they need in order to be able to continue their learning online. And this is something that has been successfully adapted by schools over the last number of weeks and months as they've moved towards an online virtual environment for their students. And Study Island for home. Like I said earlier on, Study Island is a tool that has been used by thousands of districts across the US, but also schools all over the world. It's K through 12, providing content from maths, ELA, science, social studies. There's practice tools built in there. There's assessment tools built in there. Very easy to register, very easy in terms of parental engagement as well. Please get in touch with us if you would like to ensure that your students have access to this tool. You would like to maybe trial it for yourself. You want your teachers to have access to it. Reach out and let us know, and we'll be happy to help. At this point, what I'd say, open the door for any questions that anyone may have, whether it be about any particular tool or about getting access to these materials. We have a number of resources that we are making available for schools. So whether it's printable materials from K through 12 that can be used to supplement online learning, whether it's access to free online resources themselves. We have daily blogs that are going out to support schools depending on your circumstances. We have different webinars that will be taking place about how to implement online learning. Specialized webinars about individual tools to make sure that your teachers have the training that they need. So please do visit our website. Please take down my email address and get in touch with me directly. If there's any questions that you want to ask outside of this webinar, please just email them across to me. I'll be happy to help you. And if I can't answer that question, I'll make sure that we put you in touch with someone that can. A couple of questions that have come through already, and a couple of questions that have been sent through to me over the last while is, in terms of enrollment, how quickly does that happen? both for Education City and for ExactPath? The answer is we can get things set up and running generally within about 48 hours. So we're happy to have a phone call to discuss what your needs are, how many students need access, what various grade levels they're at, provide you with access to the tool and get your students enrolled. Similarly for Education City and Study Island, it's a very quick and easy process to be able to deliver that. Also in relation to training, how can we support training? Well, we support it in a number of different ways. We can do that through online instruction, online webinars where we talk you through how to log in, how to make sure that students are set up with the appropriate access codes that they need. We have pre-recorded videos that are also very helpful that we'll send out. So it really depends on what your setup is and what access you need and what type of training needs to take place. We're very flexible in terms of how we work and support you. Other questions that have come in are just in relation to the Academy. How do you get an understanding of the different courses that we have available? We do have over 300 different courses. So what we will do is email out a list of those courses to everybody. So along with a copy of the webinar, we'll send a list of the various courses that you can get access to. What I would also say is that we have people on the ground to support. So we have consultants who work on the ground in different territories. For example, we have my colleague Matt Drury, who works with schools out in Dubai and across the Middle East. So not only do we have online support, but we have people on the ground in individual territories that will work to support your schools. They have a great understanding of what your needs are, what is happening within your particular country. So we can make sure to build a plan around the individual needs of your school. Another one has come through just in relation to printable materials, what printable materials are available. What I would advise you to do is go to our website, www.edmentuminternational.com, or if you want to email me directly, derek.devine@edmentum.com. We have printable materials from K right through 12, covering a range of different subjects. So no matter what the subject or the material that you need, I'm sure we have something that will work for you that will help to supplement the online learning that is taking place within your school. That is all the questions that have come through for now. What I would say is if you do need any additional information, please reach out to me directly. Derek.devine@edmentum.com, and I will come back to you with the support that we need. And again, just to reiterate, we have worked with schools with online learning for over 50 years. So no matter what your need or what support you need to put in place, we're here to help you and to work with you to make sure that you are successful as you transition from the bricks and mortar environment to the online learning environment. And we will be in touch again over the coming days, weeks, with new webinars that will focus on individual solutions or the individual needs of schools. So if there's anything that you would like access to, if there's anything that you would like us to talk about in our webinars, please reach out and let us know, and we'll put something in place to make sure that you have the support that you need. Thank you very much for coming online and listening to this webinar, and I hope you will be in touch soon. Thank you.